Welcome, I'm Sarah with Cleopatra's Crochet, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet these cute little watermelon coasters. If you prefer, there's also a PDF download pattern available on my website link in the description. And that pattern will also give you the instructions for making the larger version, which I use for a pot holder or hot pad. Today, I'm going to use Yarnspirations All Day Cotton, which is 100% mercerized cotton, and also some Lion Brand 24/7 cotton. It's important that you use cotton because if it's for the pot holder, it will actually protect from heat and it won't melt like acrylic or synthetic yarn will. And then for the coaster, it can actually absorb water. Again, the acrylic or any sort of synthetic yarn doesn't have that ability. And we're going to use a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and then we'll need a stitch marker and a tapestry needle for later on. So let's go ahead and get started with the red. And I'm going to make a magic ring, or magic circle is what it's also called. I'm going to start by wrapping twice around my fingers so I have a bit of room to work, and then go ahead and slide my hook under, pull through, create a slip knot. Oh, looks like my thread has split. There we go. And then the first round is going to be 6 single crochets in this magic ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to stick my crochet hook in that first stitch because it likes to get buried when I go ahead and tighten down. Okay, so to tighten, since I have 2 loops, I'm going to just go ahead and pull on my tail a little bit and see which one moves. Okay, so that one moved. So we're going to go ahead and pull, tighten down the first loop, and now we can pull on the tail and tighten that down. And see, we can still get into our first stitch. And to close each round, we're going to go ahead and put a slip stitch and 1 chain to move on to the next round. So we just did round 1, and now we're going to do increases all the way around to get 12 stitches at the end. And we're going to put the first increase in that same spot that you did the slip stitch and chain 1 to close the first round. And I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in that first stitch that I just did so I can find it later to close the round. So this is the first increase. Second increase. Third increase. Fourth increase. Fifth increase. And 6. Take out that stitch marker. Slip stitch to close the round and chain 1. Okay, now the third round pattern is single crochet and then increase 6 times. Single crochet. Stitch marker to mark it, and now increase. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, and increase, single crochet, and increase, single crochet, and increase. So that'll give you 18 stitches. Slip stitch to close the round, and 1 chain. Now round 4 is 2 single crochets and increase, repeated 6 times. So I put in 2, and put a stitch marker in place. I'll now do an increase, one, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, and increase. We'll remove our stitch marker and slip stitch and chain 1 to close the round. Starting round 5, it is 3 single crochets and then an increase, again repeated 6 times. And we're going to go ahead and mark that first stitch once again so we can find it later. So it's 2, 3, increase. Now repeat that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, 1, 2, 3, and increase. And slip stitch and chain 1 to finish the round. This is where I shift the pattern a little bit because we can keep going in that same pattern where we increase a single crochet and then do an increase repeated 6 times. But if you notice, we're starting to get a bit of a pointed edge because our increases are all happening in the exact same place. So now every other round, I'm going to shift it by half. So we have 4 single crochets and then an increase for round 6. But to shift it, I'm going to do 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, and then do my increase now. So first an increase, and then continue with 4 single crochets and increase, and you're just going to end the round with 2 single crochets instead of an increase. But it's the same number of stitches, you're just going to shift the pattern by half. We're going to do 4 single crochets now. 2, 3, and 4, followed by an increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, followed by an increase. So I met you back at the end, and I've just done my last increase, and I have 2 stitches left, and that's where the shift in the pattern gets completed. And now we should have 36 stitches to go all the way around, and you can count to confirm. I'm going to slip stitch and chain 1 to close the round. Round 7, we're going to go back to the same pattern and do 5 single crochets and then an increase. Put 2 there, and then go ahead and mark my first stitch with a stitch marker. Continue 3, 4, 5, and an increase. I'm going to keep repeating 5 single crochets and an increase, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my slip stitch, and if you want to check, you should have 42 stitches. And the difference here is I'm not going to chain 1 because I need to go ahead and change colors to the white of the rind. So I'm just going to cut myself, leave a couple inches. And now I'm going to do the chain 1 of the slip stitch and chain 1 with the white colored yarn to even out the color change. So I'm not making a knot or anything. You can if you want to, but it's just more bulk to deal with later. So I'm going to do my chain, and I'm going to tighten down the red and move both of these tails to the wrong side of your work, to the inside. And to begin round 8, you need to do 6 single crochets and an increase. And again, I'm shifting that, so I'm doing 3 single crochets, increase, and then continuing 6, increase, 6, increase. So with the white yarn, I'm going to go ahead and work my first single crochet into the same spot as the slip stitch. And now I'm going to pause, and I'm going to tie a knot to secure this, but so that the knot is on the inside. And then I prefer to just crochet over top of one of these strands so I don't have to weave it in later. I found that if you crochet over 2, it kind of makes it bulky and uneven, but you can get away with 1, and that's just 1 less tail you have to weave in later, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So I've done my first single crochet in white, and now I'm going to do my second and third, and I'm going to do my first increase, and now I'm going to keep repeating 6 single crochet, increase all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. I've done my last increase for the round 8 with 6 single crochets and then an increase, and since I shifted, I have 3 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to go ahead and do those. 1, 2, and 3. And now you're going to slip stitch into the white to close the round, except you need to do another color change, this time to the green. Go ahead and cut, leaving yourself a tail. And now you're going to do the chain 1 with the new color. This time it's green. Pull both of your tails in front of you. You can tighten down that white one. It's not running away. And you're going to do your first single crochet into the same space as your slip stitch that you did in white. And then I'm going to go ahead and pause and tie a knot. Now this white was from your color change from the red to the white. And now this one and the green, I'm going to tie in a knot to secure. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and crochet over top of one of the strands, just so I don't have to weave in as many ends later. And this time, we just did 6 single crochets and an increase. Now we're going to do 7 single crochets and an increase, repeated 6 times. So that was stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and an increase. Okay, now repeat that 5 more times, and I'm going to meet you back at the beginning. So I've just completed round 7. I'm going to slip stitch to close the round, and then we don't need to chain yet because we're at the end. Now you can go ahead and cut this strand because you need to make a second one of exactly this. So the timestamp will be in the description. Follow all of the instructions to do this a second time. So I'm going to have 2 circles exactly identical, and you're going to go ahead and sew on the seeds, which I'll show you, and then you're going to crochet the 2 halves together. So you have, it's going to be reversible, and then you don't have to worry about weaving in all the tails for the seeds or anything like that, and you can kind of hide the messy side of the work and it'll look clean and finished on both sides. For the second circle, I don't want you to cut this yarn because you're going to continue working in it to just crochet the 2 halves together so you don't have to sew it. So I'm just going to take a stitch marker and put it here so that it doesn't start unraveling on me. Now in order to add the seeds, I'm going to cut myself just a length of black yarn and thread it on my needle without making a knot. And you can either sew the seeds in kind of a random pattern like this one, or you can do it in a very uniform, just kind of in a circle, one band, which is what I'm going to do for this one. But the important thing is that you sew through the same hole twice to give the seeds a little bit of thickness. So what I mean by that, if I'm going to do a uniform pattern, I want to do somewhere in the middle. So this is my magic circle that I started with, and I want to be somewhere in the middle of this red. So that's about here. From the wrong side up into the top. I'm going to leave myself a strand. This isn't just enough that you can tie later. And I'm going to go straight out 1 stitch and pull tight. Oh, it got caught. We'll just undo that. And then I'm going to come up through that same exact hole that I went through first with the black yarn. Just kind of push it to the side. And again, go down through the exact same spot. And it's just going to make that seed a little bit thicker and stick out a little bit more. And I'm going to keep rotating around. Okay, and go maybe 1, 2, 3, about here. Let's do a quick measurement. Center in the top of the seed, center on the top of the seed. Yeah, that'll work. want to go in the same spot. There we go. Exact same spot. Give both a little lift so they're even. 2, 3 about. Yeah, it's directly across. Again, and then go from the very center with that magic ring out. Just the seed so they're even. Rotate again. Looks like I can fit, I think, 2 more in here. There we go. And now you could just tie this into a knot and fold it in half and crochet this closed. Should be a cute little bag charm. But I'm going to go ahead and repeat, see, the exact same seed pattern on the second half of the coaster. And see, I've knotted this, and I'm not even gonna bother with weaving in these ends. I'm just gonna hide it when I crochet the 2 halves together. So go ahead and add seeds to your other half, and I will meet you at the next step. So I face them towards each other, and I'm gonna go ahead and take my stitch marker off and re-tighten down. And now I'm going to add, see, this is a slip stitch to connect the row together. I'm going to add 1 chain, and it doesn't matter. You can see that my one is slightly bigger than the other. It doesn't really matter. It just means that my tension was slightly different when I made the 2 halves, and they're still going to go together. So now I'm going to crochet 1 stitch from each half together in a single crochet. So let me show you how that's done. I'm going to pick up the first stitch, and I'm going to go right into the same corresponding stitch on the other half. I'm going to pull up a loop and single crochet. And now I'm going to keep doing that 1 stitch for 1 stitch all the way around. Picked it up, pull up a loop, and single crochet. Go through the first half and the second, pick up a stitch, and single crochet. All right, and now I'm going to go all the way around the circle, and I'll meet you back at the beginning and show you how to tie it off. I've gone most of the way around the circle doing those single crochets, and now I just have a couple left, and this is where that slip stitch was for this 1 half. And so you just kind of find your way going along and make your own stitch. So it's a little bit tight, but that's okay. Just keep going. And make sure that you get back to the beginning. Just kind of putting the 2 halves together there. And now I'm going to make a slip stitch, cut myself a length of yarn, pull that through. And now I gave myself a little bit extra. I'm gonna go back and cover up that little white stitch because it'll just blend the colors a little bit better, and cover up and a little bit of this white here, and it'll blend the colors a little bit better so it doesn't stick out the transition as much. So I'm gonna go split the stitch here, just kind of go in, pull tight, and work my way under a couple stitches. See, I'm coming up right above that white. I'm gonna wrap the green over top of it. And slide it right over, and then you just can't see it as much. Kind of give it a little tug to be in shape. And let's see, I think the transition here could be a little bit better. So I'm gonna go underneath. And pull up through here to add a little bit more green. And now let's look at the other side. Add some green here. And this white is too much. So I'm just adding a little bit of green wherever I see a little bit too much white, to just blend that color transition a little bit better. And I don't love that white right there, so I'm picky about colors. I'll probably snip a piece of red yarn and just cover it up. But there we go. We have our coasters. So I'm sliding between, you can kind of feel the separation of the two, and just pulling that through and snip it, and it's all gone. And there is our watermelon coaster all finished. And now if you change the colors, you can also make honeydew, cantaloupe, and watermelon. Exact same pattern, just changing colors at different points. Or, well, changing colors at the same points, just using different colors at different points. But if you'd like to know the specifications for the different colors exactly that I used, the exact yarn for the different versions, or you just prefer to work off of a PDF pattern, go ahead and check out the link down in the description. But thank you so much for watching. Until next time.